So I am in Photoshop, and so some of this might be repetitive to people in the room, but remember, I'm recording this for all of the history of the world to look at my YouTube channel and learn about making OPArt, or something, so to speak. So in Photoshop with layers, this is one that I had been working on. Okay, so what do I have here? I have a little spheroid ball thing here. It's got some layer effects on it. We should hopefully remember those. Drop shadow and bevel and emboss. That makes it even a little more three-dimensional in my world. And I like the drop shadow, kind of puts it in space. And then I have a little, is this one here? Yeah, a little smaller one, little smaller globe here, kind of floating in the, so that's farther away. So I'm really trying to play with this sense of depth, all right? Also, does anyone, I'll shout this out, you can shout out, we'll be on the recording forever as well. What's happening to the edges here of this checkerboard for anyone? Does anyone have something happening to your eye there? Say that again? Points. There's points at the corners? Yeah. Yep, and does this line look straight? Do these lines look straight? Huh? Yeah. Yes? It's up to you. I mean, it all depends on your eye. So if I put a line here, it is a straight line, but I think sometimes because of this circle here, I get a little bit of a bow feeling. Looks kind of like they're bowing in, at least for my eyeball. We are all different, and we all perceive things a little bit differently, so you might see things different than I do. Also, let's take a look at so this checkerboard, so that is a layer on top of a whole other layer, right? Definitely what I want you to start taking away is that we're going to be adding, we aren't doing these in one shot. We don't do, like, it's not created instantly by one click of a button. We'll be using a lot of clicks of buttons, but to develop and build up this OPArt, okay? So, how do we get there? File, new. We're going to work 8 by 8. Nobody does this. You don't follow along. Just know that that's what I'm talking about. 8 inches by 8 inches by 150 pixels per inch. I get a blank document, okay? Now I want to make a checkerboard pattern here. Now I could sit there, I could get my rulers. I'm set at millimeters right now. If you don't know this in rulers, if you just right click, you can change inches. So I'll go to inches because we think better in terms of inches in this country than we do millimeters. And then I'll put it at 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch and 1 inch. Okay, so I've essentially just gridded out this corner. I am going to make a checkerboard by selecting this area, and I'm going to fill that with black. Alright, Alt Delete, and then I need another square here. Alt Delete. Alright, so there is the start of a checkerboard. Now, there is always more than one way to do something in Photoshop, right? I could copy and paste that and move it along, right? And then I could I could sit there and you know, you can get the idea. I could copy and paste these along until I had a checkerboard. Or, a better way, I can make it a pattern. So I'm going to select this corner that is now the checkerboard. It's a very miniature checkerboard, right? Only 4 squares. And I'm going to go to Edit, Define Pattern. So if you learn anything today, learn this. Define Pattern. Once you have something there, I'm going to let it be named Pattern 6. You could name it Fred if you'd like. And then I'm going to go to my paint bucket, and I can fill with patterns. Normally we fill with a foreground, right? Normally we fill with color. Here you can choose pattern, and from pattern you can choose a pattern that you made, which I just made this one, pattern number 6. I'm going to click, and there I have a checkerboard pattern, instantaneous. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make copies of this. I would like, why click, you know, and make more, you know, I can just make copies of these layers and I can make more patterns, right? So let's just quickly look over here and we'll look at these 4 walls that I created. So that was easy enough. I'm going to turn these layers, I'm going to add a layer for a background. And, oops, sorry, forgive me. I'm going to just leave this on and fill it with white. And then I'll make a couple, I need 4 walls. Command T for transform. I'm going to transform it. If I drag that in, you can see what's happening there. If I hold my command key down, I can scale it, right? And you can see that I am basically kind of making a wall. Now actually, I could do that 4 times, or I could take this, command T for transform, and I can flip it, right? You get the idea. Now I actually went and made sure I got the perspective right so that I had my walls line up, okay? I'm not going to take that time right now. You get the idea. So that's how that occurred. Let's look at other things we can do with a checkerboard. If I just have this plain old thing, I go to filter, oops, mistake, filter, distort, and let's go to spherize and instant OPArt. Could you imagine if you're one of those person from 1950 who like took a ruler and like measured out all these like adjusted bending squares and did that like and spent like a month or so like making a piece of OPArt, and then I come along and just click one button and I make like instant there. So I spherized it twice, right? So I made it kind of bulge even farther, right? So that's instantaneous. Would that be done? No, that's not done, right? But that is how I got that ball there. Then I cut it out. So let's say I wanted to do something similar to that. So I could actually select an area. I can actually select with a circle. Hold my shift button down to get a nice perfect circle. And I'm going to go filter, spherize. There it is. I'm going to command C, command V. All right. And I can move it. So this one is the actual whole page where the spherize is in there. This one is a ball all unto its own self. And I can go to layer styles. Hopefully you did not forget everything you learned about layer styles. And let's just give it a drop shadow. And there it is. And now the ball is hovering. Oops, I was moving my drop shadow. It's not really what I wanted to do. But you get the idea. So there's my drop shadow. Drop shadows have adjustments, how the distance, how far away it is, the spread, right, size, okay? So you get the idea. And then if I move the ball around, the drop shadow follows, right? So that's what was happening. That's what's happening here. All right, what else could we do? Let's look at some other filters. Lots of things. Look, I'm going to make some more copies of this just so that I have. It's just always, you know, just easy way to just keep working. Filter, distort. Let's try polar coordinates. And that's how you make checkerboards. I mean dartboards. All right. So is that done? No, that's a beginning, right? I made a checkerboard, then I used polar distort. That's a beginning. Maybe I want one of these on there, and I'm gonna scale it. Oops. I'm just going to scale it down. And I'm going to make another one. And I'm going to scale that one down. And then make another one. So if you don't remember, I'm on the move tool and I'm holding my alt key down or option key, and that gives me a copy of it. And then, so you get the idea. So then I have these different little balls all kind of moving and floating towards the center of my polar coordinates. The idea is we want to play with this concept of perspective. We want to play with the concept of space, relationship to space, things that are coming towards us, things that are projecting farther away. We are sticking black and white. We're not doing color. That way it keeps it simple. Let's do one more thing here. So let's say, what if we could, maybe you're sick of checkerboards and you're like, well, what else could I make? Well, I don't know. Let's just see. Let's make some dots and see what we get here. So then I need to select the area that I want to be the pattern, edit, define pattern, let it be named. Go to my paint bucket tool, make sure I have the pattern set, go find the pattern, click, there's the pattern. Select that here, filter, and let's go distort, spherize. Say okay. What does that look like, John? If it were yellow and blue,
ball.
The ball, right? And that the same thing. That poor sucker, that artist, he didn't even know that I could reproduce his artwork in like 3 seconds. But he's crying right now, rolling in his grave probably. But that, so let's just undo a little bit. So that's that. What does polar coordinates do that? Also notice there are a lot of other distort things you could play with. I'm not going to play with them. You can play with them. Oh, I don't know. That's kind of interesting. Maybe you like it. Maybe you don't. Maybe that's where you begin. Maybe you then, once you have that, you know, you want to scale it. I'm going to hold my command key. I'm going to just drag from the corner. That's kind of weird. Kind of messing around with some perspective there. Anyway, you get the idea. What else do we need to know? Oh, we'll look at this one. So instead of circles, I made squares, right? So I took these little corners, I bent them in, and I made little diamonds out of them. Then I floated the diamonds. There's like a blurry background. So that's kind of a checkerboard that has, I think it's got a radial blur on it. Radial blur on my checkerboard, I think, which is kind of cool. You have to be careful. If you distort too much or blur too much, you begin to lose your pattern, and it kind of loses the effect. So everything has to be kind of done, you know. So that's this thing. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. I kind of had fun with it. This little thing. It's got, there's a drop shadow. It might even had some bevel and emboss effects on it, maybe. But I would encourage you to experiment. That's the idea, to play around and see what you can come up with. See, you know, every time I do this, people come up with new things I've never seen before. What else we got? Oh, that's probably the checkerboard. That might be the checkerboard that I used. Yeah, look at that. See, I just kind of flattened it out. You see that? That's how that got that way. And then, I made a copy of it. But anyway, that's basically what I did. Is I made a small checkerboard, and then I bent it in and flattened it out so that it would be and then I flipped it in four times so I could make kind of this diamond checkerboard diamond thing. That is all I got for you, except for the actual project, which is you are going to make 6 different OPArts. 6. Yeah, 6. So it might take you in the beginning, it might take the whole period to make 1. That's okay, but you're going to get better at it, and once you like have a checkerboard, you can like reproduce parts, right? You can use different parts over and over again, right? So I might go here. This maybe is 1. Then I go, okay, so now I want to put a diamond in there, and I'm going to get rid of this ball and this ball. But I do like this. I want to put some other shapes in there instead. And maybe instead of this bullseye behind there, I want something else behind there, right? So once you start having parts, you'll see it's, you know, it won't take as long to get things done. So there, now I'm moving this. So maybe I want something like that in this one, and I'll work in that direction as opposed to that, right? So they all begin to change. They all begin to do different things. All right.